Okay, so welcome back, and in today's video we're going to be looking at how to get our aliens to move across the screen and also down the screen. So we're going to start off by go ahead and closing this. Here we go. And then let us go into the settings.py, because as we've been doing, we have the screen settings, we have the ship settings, we have the aliens, our bullet settings. Now let's create our alien settings. And just basically right now we're just going to have self.alien underscore speed. And we're going to set that equal to 1.0. And eventually we'll get into changing that later on in the game. But for now, we'll have the aliens moving at speed 1. Gives us a chance to catch up and move faster because we're moving at 1.5. Aliens are moving at 1. So we can catch them if we need to. Now, in our alien PY, we need to go in there, and since we've set a setting for the alien, for the settings, we need to go into the alien and we need to find an update method for this. So after our init method is over, actually in our init, we'll come down a couple and let's come over one tab and let's define our update self. So we're going to update ourselves, and what this is going to do is going to move the alien to the right. All right, and we're just going to come in here and say self.x plus equals self.settings.alien speed. And that was what we just created. And then we will self.rectanglex will equal our self.x. There we go. Now we just need to actually get up into where we create the initial self.screen. We give it the AI game.screen. Let's also create our self.settings. So let's create that attribute to be equal to our AI game.settings. And that way, it'll know down here when we're talking about self.settings, that's what we're creating up here. Our self settings will equal the game settings, and then our X will add that alien speed, which is part of the settings. So now that we have updated the settings, we've updated the aliens, let's go back to Alien Invasion, and our run game, which is up here, and here's our run game. So we're checking up events, we're ship update, we are updating bullets. Before we update the screen, we now have something else to update. We'll call self.update, underscore update, because it's going to be a helper method, underscore aliens. And, obviously it's not turning colors because we haven't created this method yet. So we're just going to create this method. And again, it doesn't matter too much where we put this code. These functions don't have to be in any kind of order. So we'll come down here and I'm just going to put it, we have creating the fleet, we have creating the aliens. So I'm just going to put it here after create aliens and before we fire our bullets. So what we're going to do here is we're going to define our helper method update alien. All right, and we'll call it aliens just to be consistent. So we're going to define this with self, and we'll give our doc tag here to be update the positions of all aliens in the fleet. All right, and so how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do self.aliens.update. We don't need a semicolon. We're not typing Java or JavaScript. So now that we've implemented this, we are going to go ahead and go back into the settings, and we're going to create some settings for the fleet direction itself. But before we do that, let's go ahead and save this. So we'll save, and we'll save. Come back to Alien Invasions, and we're just going to run it. And there goes our aliens, and now they're gone. They just went right off the screen. So obviously that's not what we want to do. So we're going to need to change the directions, the fleet direction, back in the settings. So let's go back to settings. And alien settings currently just has a speed. But we also, once it hits the right side, we want it to drop. So we're going to do self.fleet underscore drop speed. And we're going to set that equal to 10. So that way it comes down a little faster, and we'll noticeably see it drop down 10 units. So then from there, we'll set a little note here that the fleet direction of 1 represents right, and -1 represents left. All right, because we got to have a direction here. We want it to go right, we want it to go left, so that's adding 1 will make it go right, subtracting 1 will make it go left. So by oscillating back and forth between 1 and -1 determines whether or not it's going to be going forward or going backwards. It's not going to impact the speed because we're going to end up multiplying by this to affect the speed. So multiplying by -1 means we'll be subtracting 1 each time. And so we're going to do this by self.fleet underscore direction. And we're going to start off going to the right. So we'll set this up as 1. So it's already going right. And we're just now formalizing that and providing ourselves with a mechanism to change direction when we need to. So we built the ability to come down. We built the ability to change direction. But none of that's going to have any impact if we cannot detect when our alien hits the edge. And this is going to be a little tricky because we have so many different aliens. But we're going to try to work through this by creating a new alien method. So come down here after update, and we're going to define check edges. So, and really what's only going to matter is that if one of our aliens detects an edge, they'll all be checking. But when one of them detects an edge, then we're going to know that we've reached the edge. So we're going to return true if alien is at the edge of screen. And there's our docstring. And so how do we do that? We set the screen rectangle to be equal to self.screen.get rectangle. And now that we have that, we're going to come down here and we're going to set if self dot rectangle right is greater than or equal to screen rectangle dot right, or self dot rectangle dot left is less than or equal to 0. So again, we've set this up as an or statement. So two completely separate conditionals. The first one here checks to see if our rectangle's right, the alien's rectangle on the right side, is greater than the screen's rectangle's right value, meaning it's hit the right edge. Or the self.rectangle left is less than or equal to 0, again because the screen's left side is automatically 0, so we're just checking to see if it's right or left. And if it is, if either one of these things are true, then I'm just going to return true. And now let's go back in here to our update, and we can change this to the right or left, because we're going to update it so that self.x plus equals, and we'll do parentheses, self.settings alien speed, and here's our multiplication, multiplied by self.settings alien underscore speed. So our self.settings alien speed times, oh, sorry, I did the exact same thing. We're multiplying this times the fleet direction. There we go. So we take our speed, we multiply it times our direction. So now our speed will have a directional aspect to it, either a positive or a negative, determining right or determining left. And there we go. So when I do this and I save it, I believe we had a change here. And when we run this, we'll see a little bit of a change in the movement here. Not yet. Okay, so let's figure out what we got going on here. And yes, we created this method in the alien called check edges, but we haven't called the check edges yet. So in our alien invasion, when we're going to create a new method, and we're going to call this, we're going to define it as check fleet edges, and that way we'll be able to tell if any of our aliens are at the edges, and this is going to respond appropriately if any aliens have reached an edge. And how are we going to do that? Well, for alien in self.aliens.sprites, so for alien in aliens.sprites, if alien.checkEdges then we're going to call self._change fleet direction. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to change the direction. And once that alien has been found, right? So we're going to go through, we're going to check every alien that's in our sprites. If any of them comes back with the check edges being true, meaning it's at the edge. We're going to change the fleet direction, and then we're going to stop checking because it only takes one alien to be at the edge in order for us to determine that we need to change directions. But how do we change fleet direction? I'm glad you asked, because we're going to write that method right now. So we are going to define the change fleet direction, and we're just going to send it one parameter self. And what this is going to do is it's going to drop the entire fleet and change the fleet direction. So not only do we want to change direction, we also want it to lower down, because every time it switches back and forth, it should be dropping. All right, so again, we're going to do this with a for loop. So for alien in self.alien .sprite we're going to do alien dot rectangle dot y, so its y position will be plus equals self dot settings dot fleet drop speed. All right, and so once we determine, right, once we get this change fleet direction, all of our aliens are going to, the rectangle y will add the drop speed down for every one of them. And then we're also going to change the self dot settings dot fleet direction is now going to be times equals -1, because whether it's 1 or -1, multiplying by -1 will change it back and forth. Multiplying by a negative simply changes the negative sign to a positive or the positive sign to a negative. So now we've got this check fleet edges, which calls the aliens check edges, calls the change fleet direction, and all of this is working pretty well. But we need to go up to our update aliens, and here's our update aliens, and we're just going to change this doc string, because now it doesn't just update the positions of the fleet. First, it's going to check if the fleet's at the edge. And then it's going to update the position of all the aliens in the fleet. So how are we going to do that? We're going to bring this self.aliensUpdate down, and first we're going to call self.checkFleet edges. So we'll call that method in here, and now when we call the update aliens, part of that is to check the fleet edges, and then it's going to update. So let's save this. Let's take a look at this run now. See if we're missing anything here. Still not moving. Let's see, we're missing one more thing. Let's think about this. Okay, so we seem to be a little bit lost here on why our aliens are not moving right to left. So to kind of think back on what we did to make this work, let's kind of think about what we did. So let's go to settings.py, and we created our alien settings. We got our speed of 1.0. That seems to be right. Our drop speed is 10, and our fleet direction is 1. And then we worked in alien So this class is supposed to create a settings which equals the game settings. That seems to be good. And then we created an update which is supposed to move the aliens to the left and the right. And here's actually, I think, where the problem is, because we're updating our self.x, but we have not updated the rectangle. So self.x, or self.rectangle.x will be equal to our self.x, because the rectangle positioning is what needs to be moving back and forth, back and forth. So now that we've updated that, we should be able to save here. Let's go back to Alien Invasion and see if that solved our problem. There we go. All right. And then we ran into another problem. The Alien Invasion object has no attribute change fleet direction. So, what line are we running into that problem on? Line 91. So here we're running into this self dot, because that was created within our other method. Okay, so this method is a helper method right here, and I can see it hasn't changed to yellow, and I can see the problem now is they don't match. So let's fix that by changing the direction here. So we fixed that problem, and now let's see if we can run. There we go. And here they are, they're coming down to get us. Oh no, oh no. So that's it for today. We are going to need to start being able to shoot these aliens, and we're also going to have to end the game, because right now they're just going to keep coming down until they get all the way off the screen. And that's a problem. We need to be checking for collisions. We need to be able to shoot at these aliens. And we're going to take that up in the next video. See you then.